In this screencast video lecture, we are going to see the details about the parasitic adaptations of an endoparasites. Endoparasites refers to organisms that live inside the body of their host and they have developed a range of adaptations to live in that particular environment. This adaptation helps them to survive, reproduce and effectively exploit their host for their living. Some of the key parasitic adaptations of the endoparasites are grouped into morphological adaptation, physiological adaptations, reproductive strategies, behavioral adaptations, life cycle adaptations and finally the chemical adaptations. First, we look at the standpoint of the morphological adaptations. Here, body shape and size are those that play a major role in their survival. Usually, these endoparasites will be having an elongated, flattened or streamlined bodies that allow them to move freely through the host tissues and organ. A classical example is tapeworms, which comes under the order Cystoda. They are all basically flat and ribbon-like organism. This flat body structures help them to attach to the intestinal walls of their host for their living. The next one, they found to have certain attachment structures. These endoparasites possess specialized structures such as suckers, hooks or barbs, which helps them to anchor themselves securely within the host, especially with the intestinal walls. This adaptation helps to prevent them from being dislodged by the host activities or by host movements. Even with the help of a digestive enzymes or digestive process, it's not possible to remove these parasites there from attached wall. Next point is the physiological adaptation. Here two points are important. One is from the nutrient absorption and another one is from the angle of metabolic adaptations. Here in nutrient absorption, endoparasites have developed efficient mechanisms for nutrient absorption from their host body. For example, they lack a proper digestive system. So, they need to absorb the ready-made nutrient that have been present there in the host body, especially through their body surface, which is technically referred as a tegmen. This is a classical case of the tapeworm. It absorbs a nutrient in this way only. Another example is the protozoan plasmodium that have been associated there with the malarial disease is feeding directly on the blood cells and absorbing the nutrient that have been present there in the hemoglobin. As it contains a lot of amino acid and iron, copper and various B vitamins that can be used as a nutrient sources. This sort of adaptation allows them to exploit the host nutrient without expending much energy on digestion. Next one is metabolic adaptations. Some endoparasites can able to adapt their metabolism to survive under a low oxygen environment, which are the typical condition existing there in an intestinal regions. At the same time, they need to evade the host immune responses also for their survival. An example here is the helminth worms like tapeworms and liver flues can able to utilize the anaerobic respiration, a novel kind of a respiration under the low oxygen conditions that have been prevailing there in the intestinal regions of the host. Next, we look at the reproductive strategies. Here, one is a high reproductive output that has been seen in these organisms and another one is a asexual reproductive behaviors. In the high reproductive output, these endoparasites often produce large number of eggs or larvae, mainly to increase their chances of transmission and survival. This is a clear case there in the tapeworm. They produce the gravid proglatids, which contains a huge amount of eggs. When they are reaching there in the environment, they have a lot of chance to survive. This kind of a high reproductive output is required for species that rely on the intermediate hosts for a part of their life cycle to be accomplished. Next, we look at the points related to the asexual reproductive behavior. Some endoparasites can able to reproduce asexually within the host. This allowing them to go for a rapid population growth without the need for a mating and producing the young ones. A clear example here is certain flatworms can able to reproduce by fragmentation, producing multiple offsprings from a single individual. Same is the case in that of the planarians as well as the tubularians kind of worms also. Next, we look at the behavioral adaptations. First one is the manipulation of the host behavior. Some endoparasites can able to alter the behavior of their host itself to enhance their own transmission. A clear example is the Toxoplasma gonidii parasite, which can able to influence the behavior of the infected rodents. That is, making them to be less fearful of their predators, mainly the cats, which increases their likelihood of getting eaten by the cat. As a result, this particular pathogen moves from the rodent to the cat that serves as a definitive host, whereas the rat serves here as an intermediate host. The next one is the evading or evasion of the host immune response. Endoparasites often have adaptation that allow them to evade or suppress the activity of the host immune system. For example, the malaria parasite Plasmodium can able to create a antigenic variation. The Toxoplasma, which we have seen previously, that can able to cause the toxoplasmosis, can able to produce certain molecules that mimic the host T cell as well as the macrophages activity. Next, we look at the life cycle adaptation. First one is a complex life cycles. Many endoparasites have a complex life cycle that involves multiple hosts, that is a definitive host as well as intermediate hosts. For example, in the Toxoplasma gonidii pathogen that causes the toxoplasmosis, there are two types of hosts will be present. One will be the intermediate host, that is the rodent, whereas the definitive host there is the kittens or cat. This kind of different host presence increases their chances of survival and transmission. Another example is in the life cycle of the blood flukes, which has two different hosts. One is a snails, that is the intermediary host, whereas mammal is a definitive host. And the next point is related to dormancy and cyst. Endoparasites can able to form dormant stages, which includes the cyst forms that can able to resist the harsh environmental conditions. Here a classical example is cysticerci that are all produced by the tapeworms. These stages can able to survive outside the host until they find a suitable host, then they reinfect and again develop the disease. The last one is the chemical adaptations that have been carried out by these worms, which includes the production of anticoagulants. Some endoparasites such as certain blood-sucking nematodes enable to produce anticoagulants. You already know what is anticoagulant, that prevents the formation of blood clots. Here the example is the hookworms, scientifically referred as a Uncyclostoma duodenale, that produces certain chemical called serpins that are actually anticoagulants that inhibits the activity of the host serine proteases enzyme, which were actually involved in the coagulation process. So, producing this kind of anticoagulant substance prevent the host blood from clotting, allowing them to continuously get the blood meal, and which will be fed by these nematodes or the parasites that helps in their multiplication. The next case is the toxin production. Certain endoparasites can able to produce toxins. Say for example, trypanosoma that causes sleeping sickness is producing indole catabolites that can able to interfere with the host physiology and immune responses. This could enhance the survival of this particular trypanosoma protease for a long period there in the host system.